We are Southern Illinois.
Mayo on the perimeter with 8. Back to Steffi with 7. Mayo's got it straight away with 5. Low right block. Into his man. Rises with 3 and it rims in. Clock down the 1 and the clock expires. Damian Mayo Jr. He's got 7 first half points.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
On Sykes. Sykes to his left to Moreno in the high post. Fakes the pitch to Steffi. Now looking with Haynes. Goes back to the car. Wide open and a two-handed slam. Great find by Jorge Moreno and a terrific cut by Max Picar. 47-33. SIU leads by 14.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Saluki Radio Basketball Podcast as we get you ready for another Valley game here on Saturday against the Belmont Bruins. It's a therapy session for all of us, Saluki Nation. Come on in. We'll talk you through it. We're going through it as well with the Hall of Famer Roddy Watson. I am Luke Martin. Not much time to dwell and recap. We got to dive right in. We'll have Casey Alexander. He will join us this time around. Coach Alexander, we really do appreciate the last time we were supposed to do this. He was going to come on. Look, days and things get crazy for coaches in today's day and age, and it did for him. He apologized. He emailed us. He followed up. He fist bumped us.
He fist bumped us.
He fist bumped us before the game, and he is going to join us here before this one on Saturday. We'll dive into the Valley and more, but just first things first, Coach Watson. I mean, what I really try to do with what we do is to be very authentic. Everybody knows that, in terms of where we're at, I'm placed within the athletic department. You, of course, were a long representative here as an assistant coach. Look, last night was no doubt, as we recording this on Thursday, was a really gut punch for SIU in so many ways, because there were many opportunities where you felt the game is there, the opportunity to take it and really position yourself even better in the Valley standings, which we'll get to. There are many areas to start off and point at and circle and go, man, if this play could have been done differently, if this play goes that way, that's kind of part of that we're in. But also, we're not authentic if we don't say, man, that was a tough one, and a tough one on so many levels, and it was for us. I've told you, there's not very many times where I'm really speechless after games and don't know where to go and don't know what direction to follow. Last night was one of those. It was just just so many emotions last night, I think, for all of us.
Momentum is a real thing, and it was a game of multiple sets of momentum. I'm going to allude to a couple things. One, I didn't like it either. I've got a lot of history with this program, and I love SIU. I certainly love this basketball program, and proud of it. And I'll put it in a different perspective, folks. That those of you that stay with us here. Last night was the 16th anniversary of a passing of Jerron Lewis, and I trade last night as many times over as we need to if we could have Jerron Lewis back. Just the brief story on that one was, without belaboring it, 2 undefeated teams, going to be maybe as much as going to take over the number 1 ranking in the country on January 14, 2010. 2 great teams. For me, and I've been a part of great games at SIU, Sweet 16s, NCAA tournaments, NITs, conference championships, you name it. Wouldn't trade it for much of anything. But that night, we went with 12 players to Kentucky Wesleyan. We came home with 11, and 1 went to heaven that night. And that was a real defining moment for a whole bunch of us that stays with us today. So I catch myself kind of ashamed of myself to some degree that I told myself, I'm going to appreciate this game, and I want the players to appreciate playing. I want the coaches to appreciate coaching. The fans last night, the second part of the day, they were terrific, man. They appreciated being there, and the fans were a big part of the game. But let's be careful just how big we make the wins and losses in this thing. And I'm one that can kind of reminds that. Now, to the point of the game, I thought Southern was playing some of their best basketball since we had seen with Little Rock to High Point to Richmond. I thought Southern really had started finding themselves. And from December 3rd through the 13th, it's like, man, this team's really coming. And we were very vocal about it. Had a glitch with Prince being out a couple games, and we redefined ourselves, and I'm not sure we found our definition back. Part of that bugs me is Sykes' role in this program right now. Here's a guy who's playing terrific basketball. Before that glitch, he goes to a starting role. Things have kind of changed. We're giving other guys different minutes as, whatever. But I don't think we found ourselves from seven games ago. And I think that's part of what we witnessed last night by evident with who was on the floor. And we talked about, I've talked about, you've got the bench who's been really good. And I mentioned in a point last night, and I really mean this 100%. This wasn't emotional. I thought a lot about it. Damian Mayo plays on any team that I'm aware of at SIU. From I'm not saying he's starting with the NIT championship in '67. He's playing on every team. From what I know about the '77 Sweet 16 team, he's on that team. I guarantee he's on every team from Rich Herron all the way through Chris Lowry, and I'd even speak for Barry and Brian Mullins. This guy's really good. Rollins and Ligbay's in the same category. These guys are that good. They're Salukis, man. And it's not to say that no one else is. I'm not saying that, but to keep it in context, man, we got good players. When you can get in that conversation, you can be on any team. Seriously, any team at SIU. I didn't say you're going to start for any team, but Damian's going to start for most of them. And those guys were playing their hearts out last night. And they played good basketball, up 17 early in the second half. I thought the defining moment was going to be at 6:14 when Southern got the steal. Mayo gets the layup at the rim. Henderson calls a really good timeout, and that's where the game really changed. And all of a sudden, the momentum, for whatever reason, went downhill. Let's be honest about something now, Luke. We needed to really pound the offensive boards, and we were. And we were doing it by being extremely physical. And it's kind of like, Coach, what do you want out of this? I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
So I kept saying, kind of alluding during it, Southern's getting a break on some of that physicality. And a lot of it is they're being physical. They're initiating, much like UIC did. They were at home. They were getting some things going their way until Southern didn't from that 6-minute mark on. And it's going after offensive rebounds. So it's from me being critical of saying, hey, we got to go offensive rebound. It's key to the game. It's the number one thing I talk about. Well, then I got to shut up when we get a foul 90 feet from the basket, because part of that comes with it. Now, if you watch film, you can nitpick a little bit. But don't tell those horses inside that we're playing super physical, and both Rollins's and everybody else that got those fouls. It wasn't because they were being soft. They were going after balls, and it was working great, wasn't it, Luke, for about 35 minutes anyway, until it didn't. And then all of a sudden those fouls where they got chances, and then some things went backwards. And then we had we took some bad shots late. Just there's no good way of saying it. But honestly, Luke, what's the difference in how we feel today versus after the Valpo game? When really, if Owen Deese makes a shot, then we're exhausted by maybe having to explain that one. That's just how fine line this thing in college basketball. And if you think I'm just kind of coming off the rails trying to be Pollyanna, ask Matt Painter today how close all this is, because he squeaked one out last night at home as well.
Well, ask Ben Jacobson, Ryan Peden. We'll get into those Valley scores, but Northern Iowa and Illinois State were both 4-0 at the top of the league, right there, duking it out with Murray State in terms of the top spot. Both those teams have now lost 3 games in a row and going to try to turn that tide. And we'll get into those scores in a matter of moments. But to your point, you're right. Man, Matt Painter and his team had to fight off a really feisty effort in Iowa in Mackey Arena last night. Whether you're at home, on the road, these games are really difficult. Let's go ahead and just start with the Saluki game. And we've already talked, and as you did enhance about it, 76-73 was the final in overtime, the 3rd overtime game this season, and the Salukis have fallen in all those overtime games, Nevada, Richmond, and now Drake. Ironically, this was the 5th overtime game, I should say the 6th overtime game in program history against Drake. And we were kind of talking about before the game, the last time we were in Des Moines was that overtime thriller where Xavier Johnson just put SIU on his back and had every possible opportunity to do it. So 6 overtime games now, and Drake has won the last 4 overtime games out of those 6. The first one, I don't know if you remember, I meant to ask you about it last night, but it was a triple overtime game in Carbondale in 1988. That would have been was that your first year, or was it a year before?
I got there. That was with
year
Stevie
before
Middleton in that outfit. That's the year before I got there, and I don't remember it, so I can't fake
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
I know they had a lot of games. They had several games like that for a team that was trying to get the program flipped.
You said fake it. You never fake it on here. Come on now.
What do I tell you all the time? Like, get open, I'll fake it to you.
But that was a 99-98 final in triple overtime that evening. That was January 30th of 1988, so the year before you got there. But since then, again, 6 total overtime games in this series. Series is now SIU still leads the series 61-47, but Drake has now won 12 of the last 13 matchups. They are 12-1 in the last 13 games. They've, of course, won now 10 of the last 11, and they have really dominated this series now 7 in a row over SIU, and all of that just goes into really the emotions of that game last night, Coach Watson, and the couple areas that we have talked about throughout the year, and what we try to do here is, and I know I'm a little bit of rambling and going all over the place, so please forgive me, Saluki Nation, for it. I want to kind of steal one of the phrases that you always said that Coach Heron would say to you guys, and that was, you don't have to tell people what you're not doing well. People can see what you're not doing well. It's really sometimes you guys say, hey, here are things that you are doing well during those tough times. And that's why when we get in these positions, look, it's easy to pile on now, and it's easy to say, hey, these were things that were clear and obvious that need to change. I don't want that tone to come across here because, look, Calron House knows that there were key mistakes in that game last night and key mistakes that he was involved in, but also we have to do our part and talk about those moments. And we go back to UT Martin, and you brought up immediately in the game and in the broadcast of, look, when fans and everybody were kind of giving us a hard time of, man, guys, why were you not excited about the dunk on the final possession of the game? It's because time and score. You didn't have to do it, number one. You pull it out, and the game's over. And you enjoy a really good win against UT Martin. Against Drake last night, there were multiple opportunities in time and score and situations that Calron specifically, man, if you pull it out, especially the one that I am thinking, there's multiple of them that happened last night, but the one that I thought was clear, Coach, well, you can go back to regulation 2, the one around the minute mark, but it was in overtime with about 32 seconds left. Southern gets a tremendous block defensively. Q has the basketball. He's running the length of the floor. Drake would have had the foul because they couldn't let it play out. Yes, they were only down 1, but there was about a 2-second differential between the game clock and shot clock. That's the situation where whether you want to get more help from the sideline, et cetera, all those things are fair to bring up. But in that moment, I know that's where Calron for himself is really focused on. That's where he's got to get better to understand those time and situations and score in the game, because there were key free throws missed in the game last night either. It's not like if Calron dribbles it out and he's fouled and he'll go to the line and make 2. Now, he made the 2 at the end of regulation that sent it to overtime, but it's like you said, Coach Watson, go win it at the line. That's where you need to go win it. And, man, it was just those are the situations and the moments where you really hope this team can learn, because I'm telling you right now, as you know and our fans know, we're going to be in more of these games. And honestly, Saturday may be another one against Belmont, and you're definitely going to be in them come St. Louis. Those are the situations where you have to improve in if you're SIU.
Yeah, we got a little emotionally drunk, but and there's a difference, and there's a difference in giving credit where credit's due from the standpoint with what 7-something, 5 point, whatever it was, where we ran the play that Henderson knew from Drake as well as we knew what they're going to run. Smart thing with Drake, they double teamed and denied Q the ball, which I thought they'd make a pass to Damian, and then Damian would toss it ahead to Q, and we'd get an advantage layup. Well, Q ended up he did get the catch this time. Southern better be ready when he can't get the catch. But he gets fouled, he goes to the line. Okay. Completely different play when you're up 1. Like we're down 2, man. Like it's time and score. That's when we talk about time and score. Both at the end of regulation, when he took a contested shot, we're up 1. The question I have, and this could happen, and maybe Q's a really smart player. Remember back in the exhibition game, we asked about his 3rd foul in the second half and his 4th foul, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He fouled on purpose. Remember that? Yep. Well, it wasn't like he's lost basketball IQ since then. Like, if anything, he's gaining it, okay? And the ball's in his hands a lot. My question was on the last one, did he know if we were up or down 1? Because I'm telling you now, there's a chance that maybe we didn't quite. I mean, there's a reason I keep saying this to people that'll listen. There's a reason why a guy making about $80,000 as the first base coach with a helmet on will tell the guy making $45 million when he gets on first base, if there's no outs, one out or two out, and what you do in every situation, just like it's a little league game, because you don't assume the guy making $45 million really knows as much as he should know. They don't take the chance. I'm not quite sure the way that was played out. Q's a smart player, and I'm not sure he knew if we were up or down one. And I sure wasn't going to ask him. That wasn't the time to ask, and I'm not going to ask him now. And I'm not making any excuses, but it's why the first base coach always tells Aaron Judge how many outs there are. He's getting paid to know, but you don't always know. And so that looked weird, and Southern's got to clean that up. Again, coming back to the difference between winning by one possession, losing by one possession is exhausting. And I don't want to exhaust you people listening to this, because Southern did good things. The question I asked, first of all, the answers that Rollins gave us after a heart-wrenching loss was nothing but professional level. And it wasn't BS. It was heartfelt. He was honest. He was extremely tactful about his answers to us. And he covered a lot of area if you're listening. And if you didn't hear that post game, I go back to listen to Rollins, because it will really make you feel good about his level of basketball maturity. And he talked about it's really on all of us. From, there's situations where coaches could have done something different. There's certainly situations where players, he goes, I'm not taking it off of us or putting it on anybody else. It's in these losses. And I thought it was so impressive coming out of that long locker room talk to be able to speak to us in such a clear manner and such a mature basketball manner. That's a big area for us to understand. We've got a lot of growth, and he's got to continue to get more touches, and he's got to play without fouling some, knowing when you can really be extra aggressive and when you don't have to be on offensive rebounds. But it's hard to split hairs on that deal. But I continue to love the way Damian Mayo, I loved his look on his face. I love the way we were playing basketball, especially for 35 minutes of that game. Like you said, it looked like the real play of the game was going to be when Steffi went baseline, which we haven't seen him do quite as much as he was. When he goes baseline, he does a drop-off pass to Moreno. It comes back and finds Steffi's hands. He has the presence to understand shot clock management for a guy that the game's not coming easy for right now. And part of that is he's being scouted. Okay, part of it is kind of some dumb luck, and part of it is maybe he's just got to get in the gym a little bit more, whatever. But he had the presence with 3:23 to raise up a shot that sent it to an automatic media timeout, and you're hoping Southern could hang on, and things just didn't work out that way.
No, and as you said too, there is multiple areas where you can pinpoint, and I think we need to do this too, because it's an area that bugs me after a lot of games, and we've had this tons of conversations on the road, because we've had a lot of time one on the road this year, but even in our 3 years together, Coach Watson, there's the other half of this equation, and that was when SIU and Drew Steffi made that shot. Drake could have very easily just mailed it in and said, you know what, it's all right, we were down 17, we're starting to come back, now it's up to 9, like, it's time to get out of here. They did not do that. And Jalen Quinn, who was a player that we noticed early in non-conference as he's a really good guard for Drake. And when he is on, and he was last night, and he was on when he needed to be for this Drake team. He was the Kim Pom game MVP, finishes with 21 points, was really outstanding, especially late in the game for Drake. That's where I want to make sure it doesn't get lost in here. There are many areas where, yes, if SIU does X, Y, and Z, Drake probably, it doesn't really matter to an extent what Drake does. But Drake was there to hang around, take the game. Eli Shetler, who we talked about multiple times, if I can talk here, multiple times, Eli Shetler, big threes in the second half to just keep Drake kind of lurking around before they finally went on their run. We said it post-game, and we'll say it again here. Coach Henderson, a lot, if not all, of what he told us in our conversation that we had really came to fruition. And that team spirit, man, it did not break. And it was really remarkable to see the plays that they had to make because there were plays that they did have to make down the stretch to ultimately finish it off. It wasn't just all on SIU.
Yeah, and I'm going to point out some good and some bad on the defensive end, but it also goes to your point. Scouting goes two ways, and I'm really impressed with the way Drake scouted Southern Illinois. They knew their strengths. Southern still did a great job of going inside to score, but when you look at the 7 conference games, we're getting a real sample size now of where this thing's at, and no one can say that they played a tougher schedule so far than Southern Illinois. Look, it is what it is, and everybody's going to play a round robin. I love that we're playing everybody twice, but right now nobody can say, well, we've played a tougher schedule than them. I'm not buying that one, okay? But with that said, just some things that are really encouraging is this. On the defensive end, we talk about to nauseam, Southern's got to find some fix-it with some three-point shooting, okay? They're shooting in league play 26%. We're not at that level. Like, are we a 46? Are we a 36? Not saying that, but we're 30 and above, and that can be fixed. It really can, okay? But on the flip side, Southern's holding their opponents in 29% shooting. And come back to my point about we played the real guy. We played the varsity here, okay? That's really impressive. Southern's overall shooting, a lot has to do with the three-point, is 30, just under 44%, and they're holding their opponents to the same number, which is it's really impressive, okay? Rebounding last night, and it's what I asked Rollins. He gave us a great answer about, last week's practice wasn't just for one game. It was for the whole season. Like, there's a lot of things that in that 6 days or 5 days, whatever they did, that you're not just preparing for Drake. You're preparing for this long run that you're not getting that again until the last week when Southern's going to have another chance to have shorter practices but more time on the court. I thought Rollins' explanation of what they got done was very impressive. A criticism, and it's something Southern's got to take a look at, and they've got to be mindful this thing goes both ways. Southern came out of a key timeout having a 1-point lead, and I said to you on the air, Damian Mayo is guarding Jalen Quinn. That's a really good matchup. And not only have we seen him play for a year and a half, but we saw the job he did on Lungblade. He guarded an NBA player and held him to 3 points. And now it wasn't just him, but he was the primary guy. If you remember, they were face guarding him, and there wasn't a lot of switching going on. He was sticking that guy. Well, what did Drake do? They knew Southern switches. So off the ball, whoever House was guarding, they did a false action screen, which caused a switch between House and Jalen Quinn, which is a terrible matchup last night with 6'3" going against 6 foot or 6'1", whatever. Jalen was just a better guard in the lane, especially when House can't go. He can't foul. And he doesn't have the physical presence that Mayo has. And that comes down to, number one, it's excellent scouting. That was all set up on purpose. They got the matchup. You hear me talk, I haven't said as much this year as I did last year with some of the guys Southern had like Deba. What mismatch are you looking to set up? I've quit asking that question because I'm not seeing it. But I saw it last night for Drake. They did a really smart job in their scouting late. They did a great job at the end of regulation, taking away the play. Everybody that follows Southern or goes against Southern knows they're going to run under 6 seconds, under 5 seconds, where Southern's going to get the ball to House. He's going to drive the length of the floor. You can't foul him. What happened? They fouled him, okay? Now, the worst thing that happened, it goes to overtime. But all that said, I saw some great scouting on both ends. I'd like to see Southern use that same concept of turning around, getting mismatches, because we got mismatches that we can have happen. And one of them was Damian Mayo. As much as we talk about Jalen Quinn being so good down the stretch, man, he wasn't any better than our guy because Damian Mayo went and got tough baskets all night long, and he couldn't get enough of the last ones. So tip your hat to two good players on both sides. That's why we keep talking about these teams are worth coming to watch. This is good basketball. The movie didn't end the way we wanted, but golly, it was a good movie.
Yeah, and I also don't want our fans to feel like we are, insulting their intelligence level either by avoiding some of the obvious things too. And one of them was, and I think it goes both ways. It's a credit to Drake when Jorge Moreno was in the game late in regulation, and what did Drake decide to do? They said, we're going to foul Jorge. We're going to send him to the line because he's just not a great free throw shooter. And it ended up working out in their favor. Jorge was fouled twice. And that's where, in that moment and in those situations, I know you've been in there a lot, Coach Watson, when you're on staff. That's where it's on everybody to make sure that you can communicate as one. It's not just one person, it's a communicative effort through everybody to make sure that in those situations, we talked about players, right? Communicating with each other. It's also on players, too, making sure the ball finds the right guy's hands, too, in those situations to know what opponent's doing. Man, it's on so many folks of just saying, hey, it's clear and obvious here. You did it once. They fouled him. Okay, tip your cap. But that's where you got to try to find it, because Southern also had timeouts in their pocket in that situation to possibly set that up too late in the game in regulation.
Yeah, and I've gotten the question twice by text. Why didn't you ask the question to the coach? And the reality is, you're going to get three answers. You know what the three answers you're going to get. It's what you just said. Either I trust my guy to make free throws. Okay, we don't like that answer. I didn't get him out. We don't like that answer. Okay, and whatever the third answer is. I mean, we're not going to like the answer. And at the point after the game, whether you want us to ask the question or not, I'm not bagging off of it. I'm just saying I respect you guys as fans for knowing you're going to get one of three answers. We're not going to like any of them. And the reality is, we'll see if it happens again. And that's the trick. And three timeouts. Would you like to have that over? I guess we'll find out. But whether we ask the question or not, you're not going to like the answer. It doesn't matter.
Well, and I think to also keep in mind too is why I think even more today. Now, Coach Nagy has said, and I give him credit to this, in his press conference with me, going all the way back when we hired him, I asked him, hey, what can fans expect? And one of his first answers was, they're going to be telling me take a timeout. Like they're not going to like how I really utilize my timeouts at times during games. Like it's just a little bit different in how he uses them. So he's always been that way. But now you add the factor in, which we saw at times last night, the ability to challenge. And that's also where Southern was able to keep their challenge. You keep your timeouts. Obviously, if you have no timeouts and you burn them, it doesn't matter if you saved your challenge. You can't use it. And there were situations last night where that got into Southern's favor. The one obviously clearly was the ball that went off of Jalen Quinn's leg that they were able to challenge. Now, there were still plenty of timeouts to use. But my point is even in those situations where you clearly, if you have one timeout left, you're like, man, you should have burned it. That's where it gets a little bit more complicated, especially in one possession games and overtime games, that just keep in mind you have the review aspect now, where it's not like it was, thank goodness, in years past where you could just be like, hey, can you go take a look at it? And then it just it seemed like every dead ball in years past, there was always some review.
Yeah, and on top of that, we had a big-time crew doing the game last night, and, man, those guys are pros, man. The way they administered the game, the way the game was played, and it had flow to it, and a lot of it was in Southern's favor, but, man, just the way they stayed with diligence on the reviews, even when sometimes your angles aren't as clean as you hope they can be. Man, those guys did a great job with administering the game from start to finish. We can talk about, it's just like, there's possessions in games by both sides, and there's, the play that, House probably got fouled on, or, at least we thought it was, but I just really flow of the game. I say this, one of the officials was on the Kansas-Iowa State game the night before, and the game he officiated in Banterra Center was every bit as important to him as that Big 12 matchup between two teams that could be in the Final Four. And it was evident by the way he played, by all three of those guys officiated that game. It's like, that was a big game for them. Man, that makes me feel good when I see that effort from everybody.
Yeah, and I want to also clarify, I'm glad you brought it up. We did not do the best job on radio, mostly because we didn't get communication from them, but many have pointed, of course, to the shot clock in overtime with 1:03 left, where they were reviewing to see if it hit the rim, and we didn't really go through the reasoning. The reasoning they went to the possession arrow is because it did hit rim, and it was a shot clock reset, but when the whistle was blown and the play was dead, the ball was not possessed by anybody on the floor, and that is why it went to the jump ball and the arrow. So it wasn't that either they couldn't determine. They determined that it did hit the rim and now the reason it really hurt Southern is because they were right in position to get the rebound. But it's when the whistle is blown, and when the whistle and the play was dead, the ball was in the air. And that's why it went to a jump ball, even though the ball was going into the hands of a Saluki player, because the play was blown dead and the ball was in the air. That is why it went to the possession arrow. And it ultimately, of course, went Drake's way, and that's where it was really, really tough. You may remember about a possession two prior to that when Kelron went to the floor and they forced a jump ball then, which it stayed with Southern. At the time, talking to others within the program, SIU was calling for a timeout. Prior to that, they didn't get rewarded with it, and that's where that kind of bombards, right? Where you go, man, you wanted the timeout to save that possession arrow, because then flash forward that next possession, you would have kept the ball no matter the situation. But I want to make sure we clarified that, because that was an area on our broadcast that I didn't think we were able to truly explain why they went to the possession arrow. So Coach Watson, that was why it was. It did hit rim. They determined that it was a shot clock reset, but when the play was blown dead, the ball was still in the air and not possessed. And that's why it goes. And the rule is it goes to a jump ball if that's the situation.
Wow, that's one of those technicalities. I quit paying attention to rules about 15 years ago because they changed it all the time. But yeah, that was I went home thinking, man, that was a weird play. And again, you got pros out there. You got the best in the country on our game with us and Drake, the best officiating crew in the country. There's not a better one. Okay, and those guys are as good as it gets, folks. And they were doing our game in the Banterra Center, and we're very fortunate because that's how much college basketball respects our league. And we just come back to it. It's like those guys, you know why they didn't do the JLVC in Division II? You can say, well, it's pay, but it's really kind of quality play. We're gonna go up a different level, and man, we're getting that in Banterra, and I'm just fortunate to be a part of it. It's cool.
76-73 again, the final score. So we put the bow on that one. We're going to bring on Casey Alexander in a matter of moments. But before we bring on Casey, I want to talk about the league as a whole and the games. We record our last podcast prior to the games that happened on Tuesday. So we were able to kind of dive into it in our pregame show last night. But let's start UIC. They go on the road. They beat UNI 69-61. Momo has been playing outstanding for UIC. He was really keeping them in the game for the most part early. 21 points for him in that win on the road in Cedar Falls. UIC outscores UNI 40-29 in the second half to win that game in McLeod. They made a mucky game. They go on the road and play outstanding, and we got Rob Eason right. That's what we did, Coach Watson. We're going to give Saluki Radio a little bit of credit.
I think Momo got Rob Eason right.
Yes.
I think they might have had the conversation. Play me or trade me, dude, man. Boy, is he a good player. And whether they bring him off the bench and, whatever's going on there right now, they're playing really strong basketball because they've found themselves. And again, they're not doing it at easy venues. They're doing it at tough places.
And Elijah Crawford being back, I think, has really helped them too. The BYU transfer that's missed some time, and he came back against SIU, and he's been playing well. Then Belmont, it appeared that they were, and we're going to talk to Casey, obviously, about it in just a minute, looked like they were going to kind of run away from Valpo late in the game. They were up 12 in the final minutes, and all of a sudden, it is a tie game with just over a minute left. Roger Powell's group, Deese was really good again. Cheney made some big shots, but the Bruins, yet again, and we'll talk to Coach Alexander about it, man, in late game situations, you would think it would maybe be someone of Sam Orm or Tyler Lundblade. Drew Sharnowski got a big bucket towards the end, but the reason he got a big bucket because it was Owen Dillon who set up one bucket to put him ahead, and then he was trying to get another and found Sharnowski for the win. That's a freshman that it's clear he trusts him because the ball was in his hands at the end of the Saluki game, was the end of his hands again the other night, and Belmont finds a way to escape and get what was a big win for them at home. Any win is a big win right now, 78-74 for the Bruins.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, I hope you people are understanding why we bring this up. We weren't kidding you back in November. We weren't kidding you in December. We're not kidding you now. We're not going to kid you all the way through the Valley tournament into the NCAA tournament. It's just there is a lot of talent in this league. And I keep saying it. These guys keep trusting freshmen. It's impressive. And and they're trusting grad students, all everybody in the middle. There's good play, there's big players, and making big plays at big moments.
Feel for David Ragland and his group because they played a tremendous effort on Tuesday against Bradley. They were up 7 at halftime. They were up by double digits early in that game. I was listening to our good buddy Jevin Redmond called that one. 94-90 was the final in overtime. Bradley wins it. How about Jaquan Johnson? 35 points in the win, including a banked-in three late in the contest that proved to be pivotal. There's a lot of guys right now that I think could be in the running for player of the year. And right now, I don't know if there's anyone above Jaquan Johnson. And especially if you talk about valuable in terms to a specific team, man, you take him away and who knows where Bradley would be. It's a lot like how the Salukis were with Xavier Johnson, right, in that year. But, man, Jaquan Johnson's having an outstanding year, and he was big with 35 points in that overtime win.
Yeah, a lot of basketball left to play. But, man, you make an interesting something I hadn't thought about player of the year yet. It's like, holy cow, where do you start in creating that list? But, man, Johnson, we saw it firsthand in Peoria. Strong, tough. I mean, he's a Bradley Brave, man. He's what I think of when I think of all the Bradley teams I've seen play from whatever seat that I might be sitting in or on television. He's tough. He's reliable. Not one bit scared of the moment.
Here are, by the way, as we divvy from those other scores, here is how KenPom, and again, KenPom is not the end-all be-all, but here's how he puts his order of what would be his first team. This would be his first team in the league, and he ranks them in terms of player of the year voting. So I'm going to start from who he thinks will be player of the year to who's in his top five, which would be fifth. Jaquan Johnson, number one, not a total shock. Chase Walker from Illinois State is in his 2 spot. Javon Jackson, he's played really well for Murray State as well, been one of their best scorers. He's third in there. Trey Campbell from Northern Iowa, he is fourth. And then maybe the surprise, and I don't know, maybe it shouldn't say it that way, but it's probably a name that many would not throw out there. Drew Sharnowski from Belmont is in that top 5 and would be on the first team for KenPom at this point. So those 5 guys is who KenPom believes right now are the favorites in terms of the player of the year race. And we're obviously going to see Sharnowski here on Saturday and Banterra. And then the only other game last night, along with the Salukis that went to overtime, Indiana State. They knock off Illinois State, 3rd straight loss for the Redbirds after they started off 4-0. And Indiana State led by Xavier Hall last night. He was outstanding for the Sycamores. And Indiana State just finds a way at home. You think of their 2 wins in league play. They're 2-5. Their 2 wins are Belmont and Illinois State. 2 teams that many believe are in that upper tier of the Missouri Valley Conference. 2-5 right now are the Sycamores. Again, Illinois State goes to 4-3. 94-89 was that final as the Sycamores find a way to hold off Chase Walker and the Redbirds. Chase Walker had 21 points last night for Illinois State.
Luke, the question's going through my head right now. Who's the best team in this league? I said,
right,
there's 13 games left, and so they don't hand out trophies on Saturday. I get it, but when's the last time you've been around this league long enough, and you followed it because I know your personality when you're in the MAC and going to school and all that stuff, and in the SoCon and all that. When's the last time that you ask yourself who's really the best team and in a league that's good? Like,
yes,
I don't recall it. Now I had a period where I was separated from it when I was at Southern Indiana, where I didn't pay that close of attention. But for decades, you couldn't say, well, it's Southern Illinois and Creighton, okay, and then these guys, watch out for them, they're really good. But right now, if there were 5 people on this thing that paid attention to our league and you weren't necessarily affiliated with one school, or let's say you were and they were just really objective, I bet we'd have 5 answers. I bet everyone's argument would be legit. I'm never seeing like it.
No, it's been really odd to me too as you look through. And I think right now, to be fair, to answer your question, you got to give Murray State their flowers at this point because
and I take nothing away from them.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you weren't. I'm just, they've gone on the road and they won at UIC, obviously a place that we found out really hard to go and win at. And I think there's going to be many people are going to find that it's really hard to go on the road and win at. But they've won all of them to this point. And yes, you made the really terrific point that there's nobody in this league that can look at their league schedule and go, man, we've had it tougher than SIU in where the games have been and where they've been played and how that all is situated out. But yes, the answer, there's no doubt Murray State is that answer. But then it's like what we've said. And I know Coach Miller would say this too. This isn't, criticizing or dogging his program. They were up 20 on SIU at home, rolling, chance to really take full control of that game. And they didn't. SIU fought back. You give credit to the Salukis, came all the way back to tie that game and made it a ball game. But it's to your point, it's not like years past where clearly last year Drake was the best team. And Drake was really out in front. And that was a team where you're like, unfortunately for the Salukis, they got matched up with them in the tournament. But you're like, I really hope we don't see that team early on in Arch Madness. The year prior to that, Coach DeVries' team and obviously Coach Schertz at Indiana State. Those were two teams where you're like, ooh, now, those are two NCAA tournament caliber teams. And Indiana State obviously proved it in what they did in the NIT. And even back when Loyola was in the league, you think of A.J. Green at Northern Iowa. Like, there's always been like one or two teams that are the clear separators in top. Give credit. Murray's got a 2-game lead over everybody right now. But then from that point on in those league standings, I mean, I'll go ahead and give it to you here what the league standings are as of today. Murray State 7-0. Belmont and Bradley are tied for second at 6-2. Belmont, of course, beat Bradley in Nashville, so they have the edge if it came to a tiebreaker at this point. But both 6-2. Illinois State, UNI, both at 4-3. But then you have Drake and UIC at 3-4. And then Indiana State, SIU, and Valpo are at 2-5, and Evansville at 1-7. Man, that middle ground there you could put so many teams in there where one night it could be Southern Illinois. Next night, Valpo. It's really remarkable to see this league where, as you said and made the point, man, if you said who is the clear upper half, like who's the clear upper half, there is no clear upper half. And other than right now, you'd say, all right, Murray State for sure has earned that with what they've done to this point. Now, I think Belmont's there too. That's always Southern's going for the sweep of Belmont here on Saturday. It is a crazy year within the league and in a good league. And that's why I wanted to point out too. You brought up, of course, my previous ties with the Southern Conference. The SoCon this year, currently ranked 22nd out of 31 leagues. The Valley is the 9th team. It's not just mediocre teams beating on mediocre teams. These are good basketball teams playing each other. But it is wild, Coach Watson. It's just crazy to see those scores each and every night. I really try to tell ourselves, don't be surprised when we hit the refresh button on that scoreboard. And, man, it seems like every time we're like, wow.
Yeah. Now, it kind of reminds me, the Wichita year when they ran the table.
Yes.
I think everybody knew, hey, man, it's them and then whoever else can maybe mess it up for them in the tournament. This year reminds me a lot of 2004 when Matt Painter was coaching this program. And like Ryan Miller, I got to believe in his first year, just like it was Matt's first year, if you were to ask on January 15th of 2004 or January 15th of 26, ask those two coaches, like Ryan Miller, you guys the best team in the league? Are you crazy? Because he knows his weaknesses. You know what I mean? It's like, man, relax. I think we're a good team. I love our team. But you think I'm going to annoy us being the best team in the league? You're crazy. And I guarantee you Matt Painter would have gave you that answer, and he meant it. Both those guys would mean it. So, can they do something crazy? I mean, Matt goes on to win 17 in a row, and shoot, even after we won the 17th in a row, we're still thinking, man, what did we just do right there? But this league is really good, and it's fun. There's so many one-possession games. I mean, gosh, I got the game on last night with Indiana State and Illinois State, and it comes down to basically a possession game. It's just, man, everything is tight. There's just so little separation with good players, shot makers, and Southern's going to get in this conversation. But we got to fix some things without question.
Absolutely, and that's what it's going to be on. And again, the schedule this weekend will be Bradley at Illinois State. That game will be on national TV. It's going to be on ESPN2. Redbirds, again, they're trying to snap that 3-game losing skid currently in the Valley. It's going to be tough go-around, but they do get them in Sefco Arena. Drake, they continue their road swing. They're going to be at UIC. Flames have all of a sudden two teams that are starting the trend in a good direction, with Drake, of course, coming off the win against SIU. UNI, they will play Valpo for the second time. That will be at the Arc. Again, UNI, they've lost 3 in a row. Valpo, they are tough to beat anywhere, but they're really tough to beat at home. That won't be an easy one for Coach Jacobson and his group. And then Indiana State will go on the road at Murray State. So Murray, they were off kind of here in the middle of the week. They did not play on Tuesday or Wednesday. They'll host Indiana State. And I'm telling you, Sycamores run good offense. They are really gifted offensively. Don't be surprised if you see the Sycamores hang around in that one. And then, of course, we're going to be the nightcap. Belmont and SIU. Belmont coming to Carbondale to close out the schedule there on Saturday. So, again, some really good games, Coach Watson, on Saturday in the league. And I'm kind of glad for us, at least, we'll be able to scoreboard watch and watch some of those games before we have to get to work.
Yeah, no, it's saying, and we're going to be saying this every week, folks. I mean, nobody's going away. I mean, nobody's feeling sorry for Evansville outside of maybe some people where I live, but you better be hooked up when you go to the Ford Center or you'll go home sad. And there aren't a whole lot of things open between the Ford Center and where you're going to go catch your bus and they're on. So you better be hooked up. And again, like I keep alluding back to, we got to fix our issues. And there's several things. One is shooting and free throw shooting as well. Southern's really obviously we're a good rebounding team. We laid an egg one night, but boy, we did a great job last night. Our turnovers were good. You could say, well, we had some bad shots that were turnovers and they just don't show up. Sure, you could say stuff like that all day long if you want to, but yeah, you got to fix the last couple. You got to fix not only the 3-minute games, the 4-minute games, and the 1-minute game. And now's the time to fix it because the reality is we're not in the at-large bid conversation. Shoot, Miami of Ohio's still undefeated, and they're trying to get in it. And the big guys are saying, nope, we're not going to let you get in that conversation. But that doesn't matter. Southern's got the things what I am encouraged about, as disappointed as I was for the team last night, and shoot myself, I am still encouraged that everything that's got to be fixed can be fixed. And probably in my eyes right now, if I was in a coaches meeting all day today, like I suspect there will be, we're talking about why was our rotation so good December 3rd, 10th, and 13th. And now all of a sudden we're playing such a different lineup in those really key spots late. That is very fixable. And you've got to have good, you can also get in your way as a coach. And you can also have bad intel from a coaching staff. So everybody's got to come together, and there's got to be good intelligence, and you got to take out, well, he's my guy, I recruit him, I believe him. Forget that, man. That's out. That nonsense is done. Okay, that if you don't have the mindset we all get them, we all lose them, then you can't have that enter your brain ever. Okay, so it's got to be who needs to be on the court at these key times. When were we best with certain lineups, and why has that changed? And then can that come back? Can we get that feeling back and all that stuff? Certainly, we still have some snags with creating some mismatches, in terms of with the lead, getting good buckets, good opportunities to score. It seems like we labored again last night with the lead from that 3:23 mark on in terms of getting good shots and manufacturing a team that I keep going back to look at the box score. Did we really get 22 assists on 25 buckets in that game? It's like we couldn't have because we didn't play well enough. Well, we did, and we are good at that. And so those are things that are very fixable. Again, are we going to be a great three-point shooting team? Nope. Don't think we're ever going to go say that at any point in the season. But are we better than 26%? Yes, we are. Now let's do something about it, and let's really get game condition shots in to get these guys confidence. Part of that comes from yourself, but most of it comes from your coaching staff, demanding it, reviewing it, help these kids, get them through that mental part, very much like what we witnessed last night from Eric Henderson. Man, he did not let his team get down from a spirit standpoint, and that's probably the biggest thing that's got to be fixed right now.
We delayed him long enough, so let's bring him on. Casey Alexander, the head coach of the Belmont Bruins, as Belmont and SIU duking out here on Banterra Center on Saturday night. Round 2 between the Belmont Bruins and Southern Illinois Salukis here on Saturday, and we caught up with them twice last year, and now we welcome him on here this year as Coach Casey Alexander for the Belmont Bruins joins us. Coach, good to have you on, and man, we could see, it's a stress-free job you have right now. I mean, these
Piece of
games for
cake.
the, you just see the smile on your face and go, you just win these games so easy with your group. It just goes down easy for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously forgotten about the last time we saw each other. Yeah, I mean, it's no different for us than anybody else. It's the fun part of the league and the hard part of the league.
Coach, it was, we were just talking about it prior to when you joined us of, man, if you go, hey, who's the upper half right now, in the Missouri Valley? And it's really hard to say, man, who is clearly there. Give credit to Murray to what they've done already, in the early portion of this season being 7-0. But you've been a part of different leagues and coaching throughout. Man, have you just been a part of a year where it truly does seem like, man, any night you go into it, don't be shocked by any result that you could potentially see.
Yeah, it's definitely the case this year. And this league in general has been so much more that way than what we've experienced in the OVC and the ASUN prior to joining the Valley. But this year, I don't know if we don't have like the insurmountable top level teams that we seem to have had the last few years. Although I think the top of the league is really good and all the analytics bear that out. Or is it just that the bottom half or bottom third is better? But you're exactly right. I don't think there's a coach in the league that assumes they're going to win any games, no matter who they're playing or where they're playing. And coaches are that way in general, but it's the reality this year that every time you tip it up, you could actually play well and lose.
Coach, your team, and we're going to dive into it now with you. I mean, what a win you guys had at Drake. And of course, we just saw Drake last night as we record this, and to play as sure as not as clean as you wanted early in that game, and then to start the second half in a tough way as well. But then, man, to pull that game, get it right into a great battle late in terms of one possession, ultimately pull it out at the end. And then Valpo as well. You guys are up 12 late. Valpo, give them credit. They come all the way back to force a tie, and you make plays to win the game. Like that, your group's no question got some grittiness about them to be able to pull out those wins.
Well, you'd like to finish it off, especially when you have the leads that we've had, and we're working on that part of it. We could throw some Nick McLean excuses out there if we wanted to. Not playing with your sixth-year point guard, who's actually a really good player, is definitely some of it. But at the same time, that's why they say it's a 40-minute game or 45-minute game or however it ends up being. You got to play them all, and we have not finished very well. We found ways to win our share, but we would like to be more solid down the stretch. So our teams typically are very good situationally, and have kind of a mentality to win. So every time you give one away, it feels pretty painful.
Coach, I want to apologize to you or anybody listening from Belmont by saying that it's an insult to call Tyler Lungblade a shooter because he's a true maker. Can you or would you be willing to walk us through, in terms of skill development, what a day in the life of Tyler Lungblade looks like for him to become such a good player?
Yeah, I can give you my best example. We lose in the semifinals in a tremendous game to Drake last year in St. Louis, and stay over and not going to drive back until the next day. And so as most coaches are when the season ends, I didn't sleep at all and just going through a million scenarios in my head, and finally decide, all right, I'm going to get up and walk down to the fitness room just to get some water so I don't bother my family. So I walk down there at 6 a.m. and he's on the treadmill. Because that's what he does on a daily basis. His routine is unlike anything I've ever seen. And when I say routine, I mean what he does from the time he wakes up until the time he goes to bed. There aren't many surprises in there. And the basketball part of it is a big part of that. We take no credit for his development, honestly. I mean, we've put in time and effort with him, and certainly I've watched plenty of film and everything else. But his work ethic it needs no push from us. The guy is always trying to get better. He has earned every bit of success that he's had. He just needed an opportunity, and we were able to give him that.
I've alluded to this before with you. And ironically, my son works for the Pacers on the sales side, but he has the ability to see guys work out because of the way the structure of their building. So he sees guys in the gym. He watches the pace that they go about it. Certainly Ben Shepard's one of those guys that he notices. And he also mentioned Neesmith that played at Vandy. And I'm kind of back on Lungblade. Is he a guy that when he gets in the gym, is he always thinking game conditions in terms of separation? Because his ability to get shots off. Southern did a beautiful job in Nashville against him the first time, what I would say allowing 7 shots. But all that aside, how does he go about that part of skill development?
Yeah, let me say this. First of all, some of those seven were not good shots. They really made it difficult for him, and he forced it more than once. It's both and. He is the routine and the consistency and the repetition. Like he is going to go through his workout every day. It doesn't. I mean, he prefers to do it right after practice, but if he can't do it after practice, he'll do it before practice. If he can't do it before practice, he'll come in at 10 in the morning. If he can't do it then, he'll come in at 6 in the morning. But he's going to go through his routine every single day. And he's not wasting time. I mean, there's a fine balance there between you can't be out there running around for an hour, when it's not even considered your official practice. So he's protective of his legs and just, everything else. But he's always working. He's not ever just out there casually shooting. He's trying to get better and he's working on some things. And the other part that goes with that, and it's kind of what I was trying to refer to earlier, he's very abnormal. 20 whatever year old he is. I mean, he's a health nut. He cooks most of his own meals. He'll skip our team breakfast because he eats at 9:30 and our breakfast is at 10. I mean, it's that kind of stuff that's super alarming, but it's very it works for him.
Coach, you said, hey, we can't really take credit for the full development with his college path, but man, you look at your team, there are guys you can. Jabez Jenkins has been outstanding for you this year in a freshman role. Owen Dillon, a guy that you have trusted with. If you want to know, hey, does a head coach trust a freshman? Man, when the ball is in his hands late in games, that says all you need to know about the trust factor that you have in him. A lot of that goes to individual guys, and we've asked you a similar question like this when you've been on with us, but you and your staff, in terms of evaluating talent, it's clear you guys know what really fits your program and what you're looking for. What's the biggest thing that you can just point to and go, this is the mold. This is what we really need to check off the list? Because, man, Coach, it's a big tip of the cap to you. You guys do an outstanding job in that area.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's a lot of ways to do it. Our way is not any better than however the Salukis do it or anybody else. It's just the way that we do it. We've been pretty true to playing a certain way, and just culture very important in our program. The kind of people in our community is very important. And Belmont really would stand for nothing less than, the true student athletes that represent the university well. And our guys have done that extraordinarily well. I mean, our team GPA was over a 3.5 last semester, just for an example. I mean, we've got some really good guys in our group. And, Owen and Bez are two guys that you mentioned. Both those guys redshirted. Historically, that's been a big part of our success. We've had guys in the program 4 and 5 years, a lot of red shirts. We've always stayed old. That model has been challenged and almost flipped upside down lately, just as it has for everybody else. But for us, particularly difficult, because it just really challenges our what we really want to do at its core. But those two guys are a good example. Guys that were here last year, and yeah, they're freshmen, but it's their second year in the program. To answer your question more specifically, we've always been like a skill-driven team offensively, a lot of shooting, high IQ players. We've learned and we've addressed, what the Valley presents and how we've had to get a little bigger, stronger, more physical, better defensively, and that's still a work in progress. But I think most teams would say, that our teams now look different than they did 3 years ago when we joined the league. So we're evolving, but at its core, we still want the same kind of guys in the program. The Valley gives us a chance to get some better players than we ever had.
As you said, you've obviously been without Nick McLean, who has been a loss for you. But I remember a couple of years ago, Jacoby Gillespie at our place hurts his wrist, and you had to deal with a month without him. So it's not abnormal where you've had to be without a key piece, and especially your point guard, Jack Smiley, has stepped in and done remarkable. But how important has Isaiah West been for him as well, especially for a young guy like Jack?
Yeah, Isaiah is very much undervalued. He hasn't had the offensive games that Mayo has had for SIU, but he's very similar for us in the sense that, we can trust him to guard just about anybody, anywhere, regardless of what that offensive player's strengths are. And so he's very stabilizing there, and he holds his own offensively. He's just not a scorer. He's not a scorer. He doesn't have a scoring mentality. So, and then Jack's, I wouldn't say he's the opposite, but their strengths are very different. Jack is a great shooter, a guy that can get his own shot. Probably not the purest of point guards, but together they can handle that position pretty well, and we've been able to survive.
Coach Chernowski's really been noticeable in his improvement this year, his physicality. What went into that progress?
Yeah, it's really a similar answer to Owen Dillon and Bez Jenkins. I mean, Sarnowski and Orm were also red shirts 2 years ago, both of which were more injury related than it was like ready to play related. But he's another really hard worker. I mean, he's developed physically. He's gained confidence. Last year, he was in and out of the lineup. As far as availability goes, just had a lot of things going against him and just couldn't build success. But he's been a mainstay for us. He's a highlight reel waiting to happen, and plays at a 10 speed all the time. Definitely greatest strength, greatest weakness. Sometimes he can get himself in trouble, but for the most part, there aren't many coaches that don't want a guy that's not giving all of his entire effort every time he shows up.
Whether you've coached, you're coaching now, or you hope to coach someday, I would think anybody thinking about this profession is paying attention to Kurt Cignetti at Indiana and the job they're doing. Is they become obviously very national. One thing that they were talking about in the semifinal game was his philosophy on transfers, and he's had that both at Indiana, PA, and then at James Madison, certainly doing it at Indiana. The question I have for you is, how much do you value what they said that he really values production and performance over potential in transfers? Because you've done a magical job of bringing important pieces into your program.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that this way. I mean, it's first of all, it doesn't matter what your philosophy is in the portal. You're rolling the dice to some degree. You just, because of the speed of it all, you don't get a chance to develop relationships and really know people like you do, in traditional recruiting settings with high school kids, especially, which may occur over the course of a year or two, and so, but at the same time, I do think that, I mean, if you're just throwing darts at talent, you're going to have some seasons where it all hits and you got a couple of bullseye and everybody feels great about it, and you can have a lot of success, but you are really rolling the dice, and you got to worry about doing that annually. The schools who just turn over their roster annually and expect it to work out. I mean, those coaches are way better than I am, because I need guys that I feel pretty confident understand what Belmont is and what we want, and there's some connectivity there.
You talked about the redshirting process, Coach Alexander, and it actually struck me. I was talking to Ronnie. I said, man, I really want to ask Casey about this when we see him this week. There's been a lot of conversation online that in college football right now, currently they have the 4-game rule where you can play in the 4 games in a regular season, keep your red shirt. Now they're thinking about potentially boosting that up to potentially 9 games, which is just staggering to me at 9 out of 12. It's not that way in NCAA Division I basketball. And we've had so many classic examples where you see guys that maybe aren't injury related play in 8-10 minutes, and that counts as a year.
Yeah.
For you, as someone who really values that part, and I know wants to continue to do it, what do you think is a good common ground where NCAA D1 basketball can get to where maybe it's not, I mean, I don't know what the number of games would be, but it feels like it's got to be better than what it is right now. Would you agree with that?
I don't disagree that there's probably some middle ground in there somewhere. And 9 out of 12 is pretty extreme. If especially in football, where if a kid plays all 12 games in football, it's a miracle, much less just from injury standpoint and so forth. But and I'm on the gosh, I don't know what is it, the NABC Congress or something like that. I represent the league's head coaches on the NABC, and it's always a point of discussion. And I would like to see something. I mean, if it's just left up to me, I definitely think giving guys a chance to play and experience the game setting and see what they can do in a game without burning a year entirely would be helpful. I would lean more toward a pretty low number of games, 5-6 games, something like that. Definitely no conference games. If you're playing those games in December, November, whatever. Hey, if you play in a conference game, or this number of games, then you're going to use your year. But otherwise, have at it.
Coaches, we kind of just turn back here on this game on Saturday. It's for the Salukis. It'll be their first time seeing a team for the second time. You guys get the Salukis for a second chance here on Saturday. Biggest things that you're preaching with your group here of saying, hey, this is what we need to do a better job of here in game 2.
Yeah, well, we haven't preached anything yet because we haven't practiced yet, but but we've watched, and it's pretty. I mean, you watch the first game, it's inescapable what we have to do better. You know, we got to take care of the ball better. It was pretty rotten, and we've had a problem with that all year long, whether we had Nick McLean or not. You know, our best moments have been when we've taken care of the ball, and our worst moments have been when we've coughed it up. I think the numbers would show that offensively we're pretty good when we get shots on goal, and so giving ourselves a chance. To just play offense and see what we can do collectively is really going to be important.
When you have these short turnarounds, and look, the conference schedule is never easy to navigate, but now when you are playing everybody twice, and look, the Salukis are a heck of a run here towards the end too. Their next break is not until that Saturday before Arch Madness. How do you your best? I mean, it's not like there's one formula to follow here. How do you and your staff and your best just say, okay, this is how we really need to utilize, make sure our walkthroughs are good when our guys are off their feet to really capitalize. Also, when you are finally on your feet and you get to practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, it's trial and error. Honestly, we're all doing it for the first time. Everybody in the league is doing the same thing, but we're on this 3 games, play a game every 3 day schedule for the most part until you have your bye week or whatever, which we have not had yet. So we've played, we had an extra day this week. We played on Tuesday, I guess it was, and now we don't play till Saturday, and it feels like an eternity just to be able to take a day off without having to sacrifice a practice. So we get to take a day off. More traditional, we get to take a day off, but we actually get 2 days to practice. But I think most of coaching for me, I mean, you got to be strategic about it, but you've also got to listen to your gut and just what makes the most sense for your team. I mean, if winning or losing, sometimes your guys need a break, and you need to go lighter. You need to have less time in the video room. Sometimes you say, hey, we've got to sacrifice all the physical part of it because we got to prepare, and we're not going to be prepared if we don't practice today or whatever. So it's a game by game, day by day situation for me. I put a lot of thought into it and try to handle it as best we can.
Coach, I'm just proud of you. You knew the last day you played, because there's so many times where me and Ronnie look at each other and we're like, we know the day ends and why, but in terms of trying to pick out which day, sometimes that memory gets a little foggy.
Yeah, especially that post Christmas run when we all came back, and
Oh.
and it might be a Friday, it might be a Sunday, who knows what day it is? It might be a holiday, who knows?
Coach, we always look forward to these games because, man, they've been entertaining between the Salukis and Bruins, but we really do appreciate your time as always. It's always great to catch up with you and very insightful, and look forward to seeing you here on Saturday in Carbondale.
Yeah, for sure. Glad to do it. Thanks for having me. A lot of respect for you guys and the whole SIU program.
Thank you, Coach Alexander, for taking time, and look forward to seeing him here on Saturday night between Belmont and SIU. Coach, we spent a lot of time really diving into the league and, of course, Belmont as well already earlier this year on the podcast, and we've done that with Casey here too, so don't need to belabor it too much. But, man, coming into this game, I think Tyler Lundblade. He's gonna know what to expect now from SIU, and that's the best part when you start getting into these second games. And I believe this is Southern's first time they are going to see a team for the second time, right, this year. As I'm thinking of it here off the top of my head. So now you're going to see the opportunities of, okay, we saw the in-game adjustments in game one, and Casey, and we talked about it with him, did a great job in terms of they knew what Southern was trying to do, and they started back cutting the Salukis and getting shots at the rim. Now here in game number 2, what's going to be important for SIU to try to continue a phenomenal job they did on Tyler Lundblade in game 1?
It's always about adjust to the adjustments. I mean, you've got to continue to anticipate to some degree, but you can't get in your way and outthink yourself. And I'm not so convinced that we're not doing that a little bit. I haven't seen this Saluki program in the last year and a half play as smart, solid defense as I saw in Nashville than I saw in Nashville. I'm telling you, man, we took away the passing angles. We took away what I call free ends. Southern decided to guard their bigs, something that Southern typically doesn't do. They typically don't go extend out on other people's bigs unless they're three-point shooters. Southern decided to do that down in Nashville, and it took away the good passing opportunities. It's part of the reason why Lundblade, especially in the first half, couldn't get touches. Second half, they went to the back cuts. They really spread Southern's defense out. But something that I sure wish I was hoping to see against Drake, also against UIC, especially with Shetler as an example, Southern put Max Bakar on him thinking his length was going to be a problem. Well, it wasn't, because Max Bakar, Shetler's a really good shooter. And as I said at halftime, they were 4 of 20 from 3. Don't get comfortable with that, because these guys, they're shooters, and their percentages play out. And what Shetler do? He gets himself 19 for the game, 16 in the second half, and he was every bit the reason why Drake walked out away. Thought Southern made a mistake by not playing that same stifling face guarding type defense where we're not switching off of him. I'm taking his stuff away. And the numbers played out for them, for Drake. It'll play out for Belmont if we try to get tricky and try to get sexy with our defense. Just play smash mouth, guard the big guys. You're in the Banterra Center. Make it tough for him to get every catch. Live with the twos that he's going to get occasionally on back cuts, which the numbers play out. But look, Luke, here's what's got to really happen. Southern's got on the other end. They got to make some threes. I mean, it's we can talk about the 26% and the fix it and all that stuff. On that night on Saturday in the Banterra Center, Southern's got to make some shots. You got to get an extra point on a shot attempt, meaning you got to get some threes down. That's what worked for him at Belmont. At Belmont, it's got to happen again. It's just that simple. You don't live on that one aspect, but it's got to be part of it. And along with, you got to get back to the free throw line and get that confidence. We're way better than a 60% free throw shooting team. If we weren't, I wouldn't say it. Like I'm not going to say, I've been saying all day, we're not a great three-point shooting team. It's not going to get that much better, but it's going to get better. Free throw line, we're not a 60% shooting team. Are we a 90? No, but we're somewhere in the 70s every single night, especially when it really counts and you're used to it. You're used to your heart rate being up and all those things that factor free throws. With the exception of Jorge in the game against Drake, Southern's getting the right people to the line late. House was 1 of 3 when he went and buried 2. I was hoping he'd make him, but I wasn't worried about it. It wasn't like, man, he ain't going to make him. No, that dude's cold. Whatever you want to criticize House on throughout the game, it wasn't him, his ability to step up to the line when the game's on line and make free throws. That would have been a fluke had he missed that. But we got to get better there as well. All the things you do to win games, now you got to implement them, going forward.
And implementing them starting on Saturday against the Belmont Bruins. It will be a 6 p.m. tip on Saturday with our pregame coverage and Saluki Radio beginning at 5 o'clock. Again, big thank you to Casey Alexander for stopping on by. That does it for our Saluki Radio basketball podcast. We look forward to being back in Banterra here on Saturday, and then the Dogs will be on the road all next week. 2 road games back-to-back in Coach Watson's state of Indiana. But we'll get to that when we do. First things first, Southern trying to go for the season sweep of the Belmont Bruins here on Saturday. For the Hall of Famer, Rodney Watson, I am Luke Martin saying so long, Saluki Nation. We will talk to you on Saturday night from Banterra. Go Dogs!
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.